Hello and welcome to Red Shirt Cinema Club, a podcast about falling in love with Star Trek. This week, we've been watching Sherlock Into Darkness. Join us as we continue to disagree about Carl Urban's Dr. McCoy, wonder exactly when Kirk became such a sleaze, and debate whether hiding your friends in active warheads is actually a good idea. In other news, I've hidden Nathan Robb in some active warheads if anyone wants them. Is Rob still a Star Trek fan? Only one way to find out.
You think you can't make mistakes? But the choices you make could get yourself and everyone under your command killed. But I believe in you, Jim.
Darkness is coming.
This could just be the beginning.
Beginning of what?
All-out war. I request permission to go after him.
I cannot allow you to do this.
Jim, you're not actually going after this guy, are you?
Let's go get this son of a bitch.
You are a poem, Kirk.
Sir, there's a ship heading right for us.
You can't even guarantee the safety of your own crew. Now, shall we begin?
I'm sorry.
We're outnumbered. Outgunned.
I have no idea what I'm supposed to do. I only know what I can do.
The ship's dead, sir. She's gone.
No, she's not.
No ship should go down without her captain.
I believe in you, Jim.
Hello and welcome back to Red Shirt Cinema Club. My name is David Jackson, your captain as order is restored. Joined as always by Nathan Dighton. I should have said...
Oh my God, I don't even get a rank.
Lieutenant Nathan Dighton,
Why
sorry.
am I not? Yeah, fine, hello.
It's because you said something on Twitter I didn't like, and now you've been
Not
demoted.
even as me.
And Ensign Rob Pearson.
Hello.
Excuse me if my voice sounds a little unusual today, but I am slightly unwell. And
Captain's cold.
Captain's cold.
The tang of space lockets in the air.
Exactly. But I'm sure we'll get through it. I'll probably just speak less, which will make you all happy. In our continuing mission to make Rob a Star Trek fan, if
God.
you've been listening chronologically, you'll know we've achieved it.
That's how we should have introduced Rob, Star Trek fan Robert Pearson.
I mean, it's funny because if you haven't listened, I'm going to ruin it for you. Rob realised he was a Star Trek fan by not really gelling with the last movie, JJ Abrams' Star Trek.
We've talked about this, and I think this is how fandom happens. You
It
don't
is.
arrive at it from love. You arrive kicking and screaming into fandom.
You
and
don't
often,
choose
often
fandom.
because of disappointment. Yeah.
Fandom chooses you.
Yes.
And it has chosen you. So JJ Abrams has got 2 movies left to try and either disrupt Rob's fandom.
We
or-
can't go. I haven't even thought about the idea that we might stop Rob being a fan.
Are you still a Star Wars fan? A Star Trek fan? Oh my God.
Oh, God, yeah, right, okay, not that much of a fan. So yes, today we're going to be talking about the next Star Trek movie. It was, of course, Star Trek Into Darkness. Rob, I have to know before your synopsis, did you watch it on a phone?
I did.
It was, unfortunately, the second time we've been unable to watch a movie together.
Yeah.
And
I was going to say, just to warn you, Dave, I spoke to Rob about this off mic, and he was quite robust in his defence of the phone, so I don't think we should bring it up, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's a brilliant...
I realise it's not better than watching it in a cinema.
Okay,
but
that's good.
I've without watching it in our lovely setup,
Yeah.
I've either got to choose on my TV with rubbish sound
What have I
or on my phone, which to be honest, is a screen that's even better than my TV.
Right.
Up close to my face is just as big as my TV with lovely headphones on.
Yeah.
We've got cinema.
You should
at home.
upgrade your setup. So welcome back to Red Shirt Phone Club. So yeah, there are going to be lots of spoilers ahead for Star Trek Into Darkness, starting right away as we asked Rob for his synopsis of Star Trek Into Darkness.
So the film begins with, there's lots of crash zooms in this film, just a planet, I think it's called Nibiru, which I think also is the name of a conspiracy theorist big astronomical body that apparently is going to smash into Earth one day in the future. Anyway, there's a big planet and there's someone running along. It turns out it's Kirk, and it's a fun, cool opening mission thing.
I know it's good when you say cool.
They've got to basically stop a volcano from destroying this planet and the native species that lives on it, and it's a species, according to Pike, that's only just discovered the wheel. So the Prime Directive is in full effect. They're not allowed to reveal themselves. So Kirk has stolen like a religious artifact to basically lure this civilization outside the volcano. So Spock can go in and detonate a cool freezing device that will stop the volcano doing the bad thing.
Maybe he meant temperature-wise there, cool.
Yeah, it's hard to know.
And it all goes a bit wrong, and the stakes are high, and the only way to basically save Spock is to reveal the Enterprise to this civilization that's going to be absolutely mind-blown if they see it. Yeah. And everyone's saying, don't do it, Kirk. Remember the Prime Directive. And Spock's like, remember the Prime Directive. You've got to let me die. And Uhura's like, oh, Spock, but the Prime Directive. And Bones is even like, he would let you die. And everyone knows it's true, but Kirk being Kirk says, screw the Prime Directive, I'm going to save my friend Spock. They save him at the last second. And there's
you get like normal audiobooks and then like full dramatic reading audiobooks. This is like a full dramatic reading version of a Rob synopsis.
I just wanted to go into detail in this scene. So as a little self-contained
I love the voices.
Scene, I really enjoyed it. And it did genuinely make me laugh when there's a little interaction at the end. It's like, so they saw us, so what harm could it have done? And they're there, they've discarded their old god, and they're drawing the Enterprise in the sand, and the drawing that they're drawing then morphs into the Enterprise as it shoots through space, and the opening credits happen. I thought it was a great opening. Just fun. But the ramifications of this soon become apparent, and Pike is furious with both Spock, well, mainly with Kirk, but he chews them both out. Kirk gets the Enterprise captaincy stripped from him. It's given back to Pike. Meanwhile, in London...
Yeah, I know, right?
In London, a young child is tragically dying from some kind of terminal illness. The parents are understandably distraught. However, a mysterious stranger, played by Benedict Cumberbatch, arrives and says, I could save her, in his Benedict Cumberbatch voice.
I can save her.
We're not quite sure how he's able to save her at the moment. In this point of the film, it transpires that Harrison... has like special regenerative blood.
Do you think that's an M. John Harrison reference?
John Harrison, yeah, maybe.
It'd be weird.
No, I don't think it.
It's missing the M.
Went through the full gamut of possibilities there.
Maybe. I didn't actually catch that at all.
No, nor did I until you just said it, weirdly. Yeah.
Maybe it is. I'd like to think JJ Abrams
Jack Harrison, the leads wing of the Weeds linger. No, it's not going to be a football player. Shut up, Nick.
Anyway, he mysteriously saves the child with whatever power he's able to. And for reasons I wasn't quite clear about, convinces the father then to go.
Well, that was the deal.
And yeah, I'm guessing the deal was, I'll save your daughter if you go and do a horrific terrorist action and blow up an archive, a Federation archive. And so the reaction to this is that all the captains and all the first officers have to get together and be like, oh, there's been an attack on a Federation thing. And they're all talking about who it could have been and how it could have happened. And Kirk realizes no one's listening to Kirk, but Kirk with his intuition knows something's up, because why would they destroy the archive? All that information is publicly available. And he realizes just at the last minute, maybe they wanted all of us to be in the same room at the same time, just as Benedict Cumberbatch comes down in his ship and opens fire on everyone. In the ensuing fight, Pike is tragically killed. which sort of sparks the emotional catalyst for the rest of the film, and it becomes
the inciting incident.
It becomes a revenge film.
It does.
And I was thinking, a revenge film. Interesting. So there's, and forgive me if I'm remembering the plot a bit out of order here, but the main beats are that Admiral Marcus,
yes,
basically reinstates Kirk as captain. He's annoyed because Pike was like his protege. Kirk is obviously devastated. Pike was his father figure, convinced him to join Starfleet. Yeah. And he's like, you're getting the Enterprise back. It's revenge. Yes, it's revenge. It wasn't actually an archive. It was a secret weapons facility that we were developing. But mysteriously, we've managed to salvage all these torpedoes that were in there. They weren't destroyed, but I'm going to put them on the Enterprise, all of them. And you're to fly just far enough away from Harrison, this man who's nasty, and tell him to surrender, or actually no, he doesn't even want him to surrender. He just wants to fire the torpedoes at him. Fire the torpedoes at him and blow him up. And so that's the very simple mission.
Yeah.
So off they go to do that. Sulu is given the chair at this point because Kirk has to go down.
Well, you've missed a little bit. Because Kirk is on board with just killing him. And then I think it's, is it Bones, who's like, or someone, I can't remember now, is like, this is wrong. They should have a trial. We're not monsters. Like, and then Kirk changes his plan. He's like,
Spock.
okay.
I think it was Spock only because Spock's arc is, I always follow the rules too. Sometimes I hate the rules.
Right. And so Kirk is like, okay. He makes the call in the moment. He's like, Sulu, you tell him we're going to fire the torpedoes, but in the meantime, we'll go over there and try and take him alive.
Right.
Go over there.
So there's extra peril because Harrison is hiding in Klingon space, and they've got to do it quietly so as not to incite further conflict between the Federation and the Klingons. Unfortunately, that goes wrong, and a random Klingon patrol happens to notice Kirk. And Uhura's like, no, let me speak to them and click. So she finally gets her I can speak Klingon moment, which is quite cool. And she tries to parley with the Klingons. It doesn't go particularly well, and a firefight ensues. And Benedict Cumberbatch Harrison, he's arrived, and he's just amazing at fighting. He's like an absolute superhuman. He takes out basically an entire Klingon unit single-handedly, and then mysteriously surrenders. As soon as he asks the question, how many torpedoes have you got? 72? I surrender. And Kirk uses him a punching bag for a little bit. He doesn't seem to care. He's like, just take all these punches. And he looks at him very mysteriously and handsomely with his fringe drooping down. Yeah. And I'm thinking, surely he just wants to come on board where the torpedoes are. Come on, Kirk. Think, man. And so he surrenders. He gets taken on board to where the torpedoes are. This is where my memory of the ensuing events gets a bit hazy, but it transpires that inside the torpedoes are 72 cryogenically frozen members of Harrison's old crew.
Yeah.
And they're all like hundreds of years old, 300 years old, and obviously in the era of warp speeds, we don't need to cryogenically freeze humans to go out and explore the far reaches of space. So everyone's kind of surprised at this now sort of quite ancient technology. And it's around about this time that Harrison reveals his true name, which is Khan.
Was that a surprise to you, Rob? I need to know.
No, because I'd seen it on IMDb.
Why are you on IMDb?
What are you doing on IMDb?
Unbelievable.
What do you mean?
Do you know, I
can't believe
we
this.
were talking about this.
This has ruined the whole podcast for me.
And we were like, shall we tell Rob not to look at anything? And then we were like, why would he be looking stuff
I didn't
up?
look at it before I'd watched the film. This is a thing I just have known. I know that Cumberbatch plays a character in this movie called Khan. I knew he played a character called Khan. Okay. I didn't know it was going to be the Khan. I assumed probably had some kind of relation.
It's a Khan.
But when I saw the information, when I first saw it however many years ago, I said, oh, he's just a guy called Khan in this movie. Fine, cool.
Bit of a strange day.
Disappointed.
I think we've overreacted.
I don't. I'm sad.
Well, I don't. I can't.
I was so looking forward to watching this one with you, which was already taken away, and I wanted you to go through the. Hang on a minute, and like especially now we've made you watch all the movies.
Like I can't erase the information I already knew about this film, and
fine.
And
Fine.
yeah,
Stupid brain.
But it's a very dramatic moment, but also he does like a face, like a, yes, it's me. But at this point, no one else knows who he is.
No.
Like, Kirk doesn't know who Khan is, or what the relevance of Khan is. No one knows.
No.
And it turns out that Khan at this point, he doesn't feel like an outright villain. He sort of reveals his story, and it sounds like he and his crew have been wronged, very much, I guess, mirroring the Wrath of Khan's Khan, where, as far as he's concerned, he has been wronged and betrayed by the Federation and left to die, marooned on this planet, whereas in this case, they're all cryogenically frozen, and for some reason, Khan has put them inside torpedoes. That was another bit I didn't understand. Well, they've made the torpedoes in the secret facility, and Khan, at some point, has gone in there and put all of the cryo tubes inside these torpedoes.
Yeah.
I think he might have used a transporter or something. I don't want you to picture him like switching each one in.
It's weird that there's a whole. I think this is a weak bit of the plot, but the idea is that they're being used as leverage, and his way, he knows that the torpedoes are going to be sent into the far reaches of space, so it gives him an opportunity if he can put the people in the torpedoes to free them. I think, but honestly, it's absolutely preposterous.
Was it a little bit of symbolism in terms of wasn't Spock at the end of Wrath of Khan when he supposedly died put inside a torpedo?
That's true. Yeah. We wondered why that was as well.
So I wondered is that some kind of little nod
I love
to
the
that?
idea of them in the writers' room going, "Wow, they put Spock in a torpedo. Can we put anyone in a torpedo?"
How about all of Khan's crew? They go in a torpedo.
Weirdly, when I'm watching the film, it kind of made sense to me, but now it doesn't. I think, and at the time, I think they do explain it better. It's like he hides them. It's the one place they wouldn't look. You know,
anything
it's like
that Benedict Cumberbatch
inside the weapons that we might fire.
Exactly.
And I've overlooked the fact that Dr. Carol Marcus is on board.
Yeah.
Admiral Marcus's daughter.
Admiral Marcus.
I don't know if that was part of her character arc in old Star
You've
Trek.
seen as much as we have.
No.
But she's on board. She hides her name initially because she doesn't want Kirk to know that she's the daughter of the Admiral. But Khan basically at this point has painted the Admiral as the actual villain, and sure enough, he arrives swiftly in his really tooled up ship, the USS Vengeance.
Yeah.
It's big, it's bad, it's fast, and it's quite clear that Admiral Marcus wants war with the Klingons. Basically, he just wants the war. He wanted to incite a war, and he was using Khan he woke Khan up for reasons to do with the war.
Yeah,
like, you're really good at fighting, I'll use you in the war. And Khan and the Admiral don't like each other.
They hate each other.
Then there's a scene, I can't remember why, but it's cool, where Scotty, they're about to destroy the Enterprise, but Scotty, who's resigned earlier on in the film in protest of these torpedoes being on board, so you can't use these. No, you can't use them.
Yeah.
He resigns, but that's how Simon Pegg does it.
Yeah.
You can't, for the love of God, Kirk, don't use the torpedo. And he has snuck on board the Vengeance and disables the weapons right before they're about to blow the Enterprise to bits.
Very dramatic.
And Kirk and Khan then they team up and they get fired out of the Enterprise to the Vengeance, because he won't expect us to do that. And it's just cool, isn't it? Just like fired like torpedoes through the vacuum of space,
isn't it?
And they've got like an augmented reality thing on their helmet, which allows them to see the exact trajectory they need to open the door.
Like
Scotty's got to open the door at the last minute. He does, and the poor guy who's
giant man,
who's like, "What's going on down here?" gets sucked out into the vacuum of space. And that happens to a lot of people in this film. A lot of people just get mercilessly thrown out into space and die.
Yeah, not to pause your synopsis, I felt really uneasy about that. Scotty's just murdered a serving Starfleet officer.
He said sorry before he did it, though.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm really sorry about this.
But the needs of the many, that's
true.
Khan and Kirk, outweigh the needs of the one big man.
One big man, that's true.
But they launch and they manage to get inside, and
Khan does all the fighting.
Khan does all the fighting. He pretends he's been stunned and he's been killed, but actually he's fine. And he gets up and he crushes Marcus with his bare hands right in front of his daughter.
Like his finishing move.
That is his finishing move. That's his fatality. Yeah,
that's a good one.
Finish him. And he's very angry. And
in front of his daughter as well.
Yeah,
right?
in front of his daughter as well. But Spock, who's been left in charge of the Enterprise at this point of time, does a little parlay with Khan. Khan's like, here are my demands. I want the torpedoes. I want my crew. Are those definitely my torpedoes? Spock's like, those are your torpedoes. Yes.
I can't lie.
I'm
Those
not
are
lying.
your
I'm a
torpedoes.
volcano. I can't lie. Those are your torpedoes. Feel free to have them. So Khan's like, yes, I'll take my torpedoes. But a superior intellect has overlooked the fact that somehow, very quickly, Bones, maybe by transporter, has taken all of the people out of the torpedoes, and they've got them safe on the Enterprise in the cryotubes. And all the torpedoes have been armed. So it blows up the Vengeance with Khan, and he does a great villain's as he blows up. And then there are sort of multiple finales here. So the Khan's ship is blown up. Then the Enterprise gets caught in Earth's gravity and is about to plummet towards Earth. They can't restart the warp engines. And mirroring the ending of The Wrath of Khan, but swapped around, Kirk realizes that the only way to do it, he's got to go inside the warp engine and kickstart it manually, therefore exposing himself to deadly radiation. But he heroically, literally manages to kickstart it just in time, and the Enterprise is able to lift off. Khan is still alive, though, and the Vengeance plummets right into San Francisco. Spock's like, beam me down there. We can't beam Khan up, but can you beam me down there? And they have a fight where Khan tries to do his finishing move on Spock. Spock tries to do his finishing move on Khan at the same time, which is the three-finger thing. Yeah. And Uhura's like, no, beam me down there. So then she goes down, she stuns Khan.
I thought this was so mad.
And they
transporter, the communications officer really wants to go down there. Give her a gun.
It's her boyfriend.
Yeah, and they
let her go.
They managed to subdue Khan. They put him away in his little tube, but not before Bones has managed to extract the blood of Khan to revive Kirk.
I got to point out,
can we use one of the other 72 people?
Exactly. We've got loads of blood here, actually. No, it has to be.
Do
Khan's.
they all have Khan's blood as well?
I think they're all supposed to be superior. They're all the same genetically modified humans.
So why is Khan so special?
Because I think
they're the one he woke up.
I think
he just woke up one random one.
I think he's their leader. I think that was always
maybe he had like a really nice looking tube, with like medals on it and stuff.
Maybe. So yeah, there's a lot that it'd be interesting for me to have actually watched this film 10 plus years ago when it first came out, having enjoyed the first of JJ Abrams' Star Trek movies, because I'd have watched this film having absolutely no knowledge of the Wrath of Khan or any of these events. I wouldn't have known who he was. I wouldn't have known the significance of the scene where Kirk sacrifices himself and Spock and Kirk get their moment through the glass, but the other way around. And I've missed out the fact that Spock gets the line when Kirk's dead. Khan!
Yeah.
I wouldn't have known why that was relevant. And it would be interesting. It's hard for me to really understand whether that would have been good or not.
Definitely.
It's just a big bit of fan service. It's like everyone loves Wrath of Khan, presumably. Here's a big bit of fan service for Wrath of Khan.
So hard to know who it was.
And
for.
Leonard Nimoy's in it.
I was going to say
he was, yes.
I was going to say, like, if you're listening to this, write in and let us know. But assuming you've come on the journey with us, you've also seen The Wrath of Khan, and so. But maybe there's someone out there who remembers seeing this movie, having never seen The Wrath of Khan, who can tell us if it holds up. Because you're right, it is just like, I think it does quite a good job, but sometimes it is just crazy. Like, ooh, remember this? Look, see what we've done. We flipped it. We've inverted it.
It's absolutely like a stone around the film's neck, I think. And not for me enjoying the film, but I think when I read about it afterwards, loads of people, because contemporary accounts, almost instantly afterwards, Abrams was talking about what went wrong and how he'd done stuff differently. And I think it all comes back to having chosen Khan, but then they wanted to keep it a secret. So everyone was kind of like, well, you've gone backwards. You set up this timeline, you can do anything. We're separate from the main timeline. And then you immediately go back and plug yourself into all these rules pertaining to the specific villain. And then you decide you can't even tell people about the villain. So you can't use it in the marketing.
Right.
So everyone was like, what is,
Yeah.
And everyone knew, and then they denied it was him.
Oh.
Strange.
This is weird.
But I think it's better now. Because of that, maybe for a certain part of the audience where you don't have to contend with the messaging leading up to the film.
So
just what you've read on IMDb.
Yeah, exactly. So Rob, what did you think of the film? Did you enjoy the film?
Yes, I enjoyed it. I think because I had retuned my expectations.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, don't go in there thinking this is going to be like a, don't let it annoy you like the first Abrams Star Trek. Just enjoy it for a fun action film. And I did enjoy it for that. I thought that it wasn't particularly good at holding together towards the end. And I don't know whether it's because I just struggle in general to keep up with plots of films when there's just loads of stuff happening, but there was a bunch of stuff I didn't really understand why it was happening. Like, why are they in torpedoes? Why is the Admiral woken him up? What's the Admiral doing? What the heck's he doing?
Well, do you know, I think
why is he just a big bad Admiral? I'm just gonna start a war. How does he think he's gonna get away with it?
This is kind of, I accepted this stuff, but only because of vague knowledge of Star Trek stuff. So there's an admiral in undiscovered country, like just a hawkish admiral who thinks they should be he's seen the Klingons. He's like, well, we need to fight them. And there is always this tension in the whole idea of Starfleet and they mention it in the beginning of the film. I thought we were explorers. That's what Scotty says. So then, are we military or are we explorers? Sounds like a terrible Killers song.
Yeah.
And so I got that without really interrogating it. But yeah, the torpedoes thing is quite terrible, for sure. And I think that also in why have they woken him up, I guess, again, you'd have to be quite tuned in for this, but the idea that, we're in a separate timeline and lots of the same things that happened to the original series crew will probably happen or exist in this universe. So the idea is it's 10 years earlier than it would have been, but they have encountered Khan. But someone else has woken him up, right? 10 years before. So, what if Kirk was not on the Enterprise on their 5-year mission because of all the Kelvin timeline events, but Marcus finds him in space, and then he would say, well, I'm trying to fight the Klingons, so you can make weapons for me, and we'll put everyone else in a torpedo. The torpedo thing, I don't think it never makes sense, no matter.
It's very I don't know. I feel like in the film's defense, I think there are answers to all of these questions, and they are all in the film. But the fact that you have missed them, I don't think is detriment to you. I think it's detriment to the film. Well, it zips over so much information.
It's definitely contrived in that sort of modern action blockbuster way, where you can see that they've thought of the action set pieces first. They'll be in the writers' room. Wouldn't it be amazing if Kirk and Khan team up for a cool bit? Yeah. And they're being shot through an asteroid field, and they've got to manually dodge asteroids. And then they've retroactively thought of how can we actually fit that into the story of the film.
Again, I saw an Abrams quote when I was reading last night. Literally said that was this script is basically lots of cool set pieces that my friends came up with, and then we tried to break them into a story, and I'm not sure I made the best decisions, was like more or less his quote, which is kind of crazy. Especially for me, I really enjoyed it. I thought it, and I don't know if it was just because it played on what kind of medium Star Trek fan I am. Obviously, like at the moment, I've got all the detail from the films pretty fresh in my mind, but just in general, I know of Khan, but I'm not that worried about the details. And I thought Benedict Cumberbatch was great. I was going to suggest he was the best Star Trek villain that we've seen in all of the films.
I was going to ask who was the best Khan.
He's great, man. I love Montalban. But they make him, for all our complaints about
exactly
the first Khan not being, he's not actually.
This is to you, Rob. Yeah.
No, this is the interesting thing about it. I thought it was a worse Khan.
Interesting.
Than the first Khan. It's a modern movies, whenever any human is superhuman, all it ever translates to is they're really good at fighting. I'm so bored of them just being really good at fighting.
Khan is also really smart, though.
He didn't display his smarts at all in this film.
There were some smarts, but I will say hiding all of your friends in active torpedoes.
He didn't think to check that his crew were inside the torpedoes when Spock gave them to him towards the end. He was very easily outsmarted. He's not easily outfought. No, they absolutely drove home how physically
that first fight
impressive he was.
That was just a neat way.
But it's also Jason Bourne all the time now.
Yeah,
like the Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock movies.
Yeah,
where Sherlock's just really good at fighting.
Yeah,
it felt like
if
that.
Benedict Cumberbatch was in those movies as Sherlock. I thought he was like evil Sherlock. That's exactly what I've written down.
He didn't do anything as evil as putting the earwigs in the helmet. I didn't see anything. I mean, it was a brutal way for him to kill Admiral
I'm laughing because
Marcus.
I just thought you really are a Star Trek fan now, where like you had complaints about original Khan and they answered them. You've gone like, it's not as good as original Khan. Original Khan was so evil. It was great.
I maintain all of my criticisms of original Khan. Yeah, I thought this Khan was worse, and I thought Benedict Cumberbatch was an easy performance for him. It was just I disagree. He was a panther. He's just pantomiming it
But
up.
it's great pantomime.
Khan is my name.
There'll be someone in 20 years' time on a podcast. There'll be someone going, "The new Khan, he's fine, but he doesn't crush anyone's skull and say you should have let me sleep."
Yeah.
which is a great line.
That is
He
a
was
great
just
line.
doing his Smaug. This was before. Was this
It was
before?
mid-Smaug.
Was this pre or post Smaug?
I think they were Smauging at the time,
Right.
I believe.
So he had his Smaug, but
was
some of
very
the
en vogue.
Smaug came out.
Yeah.
I thought it was like a mix between Sherlock. I think it was so because we watched Sherlock was so big. Obviously, it's his breakout, and everyone loves Benedict Cumberbatch he's a bit of a throwback. He's like someone in a Powell and Pressburger movie. He's like capable, publicly educated, but not actually part of the nobility. Lives in a fancy house in Wiltshire. You know, like I'm going to get started. I'm a bloody British guy, but like from the like post-war period. And then you put that in Sherlock, and everyone's like, "Holy crap! He's wearing a long coat, and he's really good looking, and how clever he is! This is dazzling." And then you just make him evil and put him in space, and he's exactly the same. He's got the fringe, he's got the long coat, he talks really quickly in a British accent all the time, and everyone's going to do what he says, and he can just punch you so hard.
Yeah.
And I thought that worked for me. Maybe because I'm stuck around that time mentally forever. I was like, wow, this is like bad Sherlock. I'm loving it.
Can we discuss? It's interesting. You said he's not as evil as original Khan, and I also.
Let's measure it.
Here's the thing.
Get out the evil
He
scale.
organises like a terrorist attack that kills, let's say, hundreds of people, probably, and then obviously contrives to try and kill all the top brass of Starfleet, and it crashes that ship. Kind of. I don't know how much control he has into San Francisco, but yet I also
He tries
think
to land it right on
Starfleet HQ, but he's not is he the bad guy? Like Marcus is definitely the bad guy.
He's one of the bad guys. Admiral Marcus was the bad guy, and then he arrived and was like, "Actually, this is the reason I'm doing these things." I thought Admiral Marcus was going to arrive with full-on eye patch, like, "Yes, it's me, Admiral Marcus, the bad guy." But he wasn't. He still felt like he was, clearly misguided and a war-hungry lunatic.
But Khan is,
again, not just an outright villain. Khan. You felt like maybe he'll be.
Is he not just now? He's literally tries to destroy the Enterprise.
Yes, he becomes the outright villain.
Right.
But I think if I hadn't seen The Wrath of Khan, and anyone who was coming to these Star Trek movies, not having seen any of the original Star Trek, as I imagine quite a lot of people would have done, you probably wouldn't have thought Khan was a villain, maybe until right at the end. Certainly when they're teaming up with Kirk, I'd be thinking, is this guy going to be part of the crew going forward? He's like this slightly edgy. Is this, oh, this is cool. And then, what's his plan, basically? Just to take his crew and go off into space being evil?
Yeah, and I think that is basically where he comes in Spacey, and it does rely a bit on knowledge of those older, like the pre-Wrath of Khan storyline. It is a weakness, I think, in this film, again, because they're trying to hide who Khan is, and they're trying to do something a bit different to Wrath of Khan. So it does play up how much he loves his family or friend. They're the only. There's that line. They're the only people that he cares about. But what's missing is, and I think it's been sort of retrospectively added to the Star Trek canon, is when they first meet him in the original series in Space Seed. I think they're all like, "Who's this guy? We're trying to look him up." And then they go through the history books. 300 years ago. Oh, this guy was key in the eugenics wars and did a genocide and killed billions of people. It's like, I'm pretty sure if that was 300 years ago now, we would remember the name. Do you know, we remember Genghis Khan.
Yeah.
Like
Khan?
Yeah. Genghis Khan.
Genghis Khan. Yeah.
So that's ridiculous. And it's ridiculous that they don't remember it again now. So it's he's been sentenced to death and then escaped. And that's when Marcus finds him a few hundred years later in space, which is very similar to the original. So that evilness is implied. And then I think they are looking for, the spin is, shall we lean into what might be sympathetic about Khan and combine that with sort of tired trope at this point of a hawkish admiral within Starfleet who wants to do a war. And so I think there are supposed to be moments in the film where you're kind of like, well, I kind of get what Khan's doing. And then at the end, turn him super evil again. But there are, I've seen loads of fan comments on the same thing. Like, it was like they just made him good and then bad and then good. And I was like, I think he's always bad. Obviously, he's always bad, but he's very charismatic. Every villain thinks that they're the hero. And this film, I thought, was quite good at being slightly ambiguous about those moments. And I still enjoyed it. When someone's crushing someone's head and then just blowing up the Enterprise and lying and jumping on a space rubbish truck and fighting Spock, you know they're the bad guy.
I love all the bullet points. Lying.
Now we come
Crushing
to
head.
liars.
Lying.
I would like to talk about Kirk a little bit, specifically how sleazy they made him in this movie.
I hated it.
And just actually quite bad. And I guess the
They did this in the previous film as well.
I know, but I think there's the point
two in
this,
the bed, man.
The point in this movie where I was like, that's actually just awful, is when he turns to look at Carol Marcus getting changed. What is the point of that scene apart from to have a lady in her underwear on the screen at that moment? It just seems ridiculous.
It did feel like that had aged particularly badly, considering this film is only 11 years old.
I don't even think it's aged badly. I think people at the time, I think there was a small outcry, and at the time they apologised. And Abrams went on to, I can't remember what talk show, and he showed a deleted scene of Khan in the shower as a sort of a jokey reparation.
Right.
I'm reading that now. That's aged badly. I was like, oh, that's a. But they knew it was it's unjustifiable.
It's just it's a bit. I felt like they're trying to make him a little bit James Bondy. Like he just wakes up in bed with two alien ladies towards the beginning of the film, and it's like you can't walk past any woman without turning around and walking backwards and going, "Hey, James Kirk, nice to meet you."
He's like Stifler or something. It's weird.
Captain Admiral Stifler.
And it's just that Kirk remains my main problem with the Abrams films. He's just not like the Kirk that I know from the very few times I've seen Kirk. Spock, I can see Spock. They're trying to get Spock. They're trying to. Carl Urban continues to be just doing a really rubbish impression of DeForest Kelley. And to be fair, I don't think he was helped by the fact that he had almost nothing to do in this film.
What was that about?
He was just...
He had that one moment where he had to quickly explain to everybody that Khan's blood was special by saving a Tribble's life. Just like, what are you doing over there, Bones? I'm just...
It was so weird that they were in the middle of a really dramatic interrogation scene and they turned around and went, what are you doing, man? What's that? And he's like,
it's just got this dead Tribble. And
just injecting. I thought I'd take some of the blood from the prisoner and I would just whack it in there.
Do you usually do that? Do you usually take blood from prisoners and just inject
Tribbles have you got?
Yeah. It's like to see what blood does in other things.
Just doing some science over here.
Yeah. Oh, God, this Tribble's come back to life. What does that mean? Yeah, he didn't have a good film.
No, he didn't.
Still great performance as Bones. but yeah, Bones didn't have anything to do in this.
He's
movie.
tried his best, but it's not good. I don't think
There was also I thought he was still great, but there was a lot less Chekhov in this movie.
Yeah, well, they gave him a whole.
He was a highlight of the first one.
He was. They gave him a whole department to run.
They did,
and they offer him a red shirt.
Yes, they did. Well, yeah, which is no one wants, obviously,
no,
apart from members of this club.
But not after that first film. No, and I thought my overall take on this whole thing was I honestly really enjoyed it, and I think maybe I'm just the exact sort of idiot that is going to watch not even now Benedict Cumberbatch, but 10 or 15 years ago Benedict Cumberbatch and go, oh, that was fun, wasn't it? But then I also thought that the film is relying so much on legacy, and every important moment, like you said, the hand shouting Khan, people understanding, orienting yourself within the sort of moral dimension of the movie at any given point, like, are they doing the right thing or not, all depends on a knowledge of stuff that's happened before. And they had this opportunity after that first film where they've broken away, and then it's just there's nothing new about it. It's like fan fiction is that easy insult that people throw at stuff that exists in a world that they don't see as legitimate or whatever. But I use it, I guess that is exactly why I'm using it. It just seems like they could have done more. It doesn't feel like they're adding to this universe.
I agree.
They're
just trying to do it in the opposite way. And it made me realise how important The Wrath of Khan is. Because the only thing I hear you two talking a lot about how it's your favourite Star Trek movie. I love The Wrath of Khan. Presumably, it's very widely loved. Otherwise, why would they have it as like?
I believe it is
the big core of this film. Like we're redoing The Wrath of Khan, but in a slightly different way.
Yeah, right.
There must have been millions of people watching this movie who had no idea.
I think it sits in the cultural memory, but and maybe it speaks to that divide of because obviously the Paramount are trying to retool this particular run of movies to be a wider appeal than that Star Trek has in the past, and that's why they have film stars in there instead of taking it from a TV show. And I don't know whether it's just a tension of ultimately Star Trek is just always going to be for a group of diehards, but still profitable if you make it. It's never going to be. We're talking about all the franchises that exist at this time and how big they got. This was like 14th at the box office this year. Like, this is a big film, but it just can't. It's just not on that level. And yet, and then it struggles to take the audience along with it while opening it up. I mean, it's like happened before, right? With I guess Voyage Home or whatever. But then even then, it wasn't like huge. It was just very successful.
I feel like I should just say for the record that I also really enjoyed it.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
And like I think, but it is cheap. It is like it's just bubblegum kind of. I remember watching it in the cinema the first time and going along for the ride and being like, oh my god, is it Khan? And they're like, oh, it's Khan, this is cool, wow, yeah. And it is that cheap, like kind of sweet tick box film that I really enjoyed, and it's kind of hollow. And then I really enjoyed it this time as well, just like good action, lots of fun for my eyes and ears, and like, you know,
it's fun for the eyes and ears.
Thanks,
That's
Roger
what Roger
Ebert.
Ebert would say, yeah.
And but you know, you've really hit home. First of all, like I feel like, again, yes, I am the perfect person to watch this, and it's like a I don't know, it doesn't detract from original Khan for me in any way. It feels different, and that's kind of like to its credit, I suppose, is
That's
that
true.
it doesn't offend me. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, they've done this Khan thing,
Yeah.
and that shows that the universe reset really works. But I think you're right, you've really brought it home to me earlier when it was like, hey, it's so, what a waste. They found this quite good way of resetting Star Trek, and they could have done anything and gone anywhere and introduced this whole new audience to Star Trek, and instead they went immediately back to this quite specific thing.
And it's an absolute knot of intertwining sort of meanings and mirrored meanings, and the whole thing is set with so much. And I think this is really what got me, how much it leans on everything that's gone before without having created any legacy for itself. Wrath of Khan was leaning on the relationship between Kirk and Spock built up over all of those shows, and then the time in between when that fandom was growing. And this is like the second entry. They're all still young. They're not even on the 5-year mission yet. So that scene where they're putting hands together, and like, it's the moment they become friends. I think, you know, and that's kind of what the film is deliberately trying to do. But in terms of the weight that it carries, it's like, you've been around for 5 minutes, lads.
I was going to
What are you
say,
on about?
maybe that's why. I was going to say, how did you feel about the scene? Because I felt nothing. And bearing in mind that the scene in Wrath of Khan is probably one of the best Star Trek scenes ever. Like, that is so well done. The death of Spock.
I would say really quickly before
incredible.
Rob tears it to pieces. In its defense, where it's like an interesting exercise, and when it actually kind of got me on an emotional level was. I thought, because it gives insight into, if you're going to do that experiment of if they had swapped roles, they're still both virtuous people who would do this thing for each other for slightly different reasons, and then their reaction would be different. And Kirk saying, "I'm scared," I thought, oh, that, you know, like that's quite a smart, insightful way. That's actually got me. I like, let's give it that, and that's adding a little bit. I quite like it. So in general, though, I thought,
and bearing in mind, I've been going along with the film quite happily. It just. I guess it's a big moment. You're waiting for it, especially if you know only if you know Wrath of Khan. How are they going to do that? Is it going to, you know, you see it unfolding. Oh God, it's going to be swapped.
Well, I guess that's why old Spock's there, right? Because he says, he's kind of like, he comes up just to say, we did meet him.
Great cast.
And he could have been like, and by the way, Wikipedia him. Like, yeah, that's important. Didn't, but he says like, yes, a great cast. And that is almost there to remind the audience, someone might die in this movie. Remember that.
And again, imagine seeing that scene if you've never seen the original films, you're new to Star Trek. It's just like, what?
Yeah.
What's going? What are they talking about? At that point, you're just like, I know I'm missing out on loads of stuff now. Yeah. You know, I hate that feeling. I get it in Marvel films sometimes where it's like characters come on and everyone like does a look and they're like, oh my God, and remember? And I'm like, no, don't know what that is, and I know I'm missing out on something, and I don't like that feeling. It's not very enjoyable.
I think everyone in the universe knows. Like, my mum knows Spock. So
I know not who Spock is, but what he's saying. They literally have a bit where they're like, for those in the audience who've been enjoying this movie but don't know, it's actually based on something that's happened before. Right. And here is the original cast member to tell us it was bad. Yeah. And you're just like, oh, great. So now I'm literally out of the club at this point where I don't know what they're talking about anymore. Whereas before that, you could have, I assume you could have, apart from where he goes, Khan, and looks at the camera and winks.
Well, apparently Spock shouting Khan got quite a lot of laughs in cinemas.
I didn't like it.
I wasn't a fan.
And this is the thing.
Emotional Spock.
This
He's
is
in
the
every
thing,
movie.
right? It tries to be too clever, doesn't it? Everything is mirrored. Like you said, I bet the torpedoes is a torpedo, is a mirror. It's like it's like just don't do that.
He should have gone.
Can I just say, I actually thought
Bloody hell, Khan.
the death scene was quite good.
Really?
I thought it was
That's-
all right, and also because I get what you're saying out there. It's not really earned that moment, maybe for these particular for this
Yeah.
branch of these characters. But when I watched the first iteration of it, I had only spent 2 movies with those characters myself personally, and I thought Zachary Quinto was pretty good in this film. There was the scene towards the beginning where Uhura and Spock are having their little lovers' tiff, and Kirk's like, "Do we have to do this now?" But then I thought Spock quite eloquently explained why he'd chosen to do the things he'd done, and the theme of what would you have done in the other person's position, it's quite prevalent throughout the film. Right at the beginning, Kirk asked Bones, "What would Spock have done?" And Bones, he would have let you die.
Let you die.
But right, and Kirk, when Spock's first demoted and taken away from the Enterprise, he's like, "I'm going to miss you." Trying to get something out of
Yes,
Spock. Spock
yeah.
says nothing, and Kirk's like, "Oh man, come on!" It's like, I'm speaking to the half-human bit of you now. And and I think it earns the moment throughout this film. If we take it just as a film, I think it does enough to earn the moment between them when they they touch their hands on the glass.
Yeah.
Spock can no longer contain his emotions. It's leading up to them, like you say. The moment here is them realizing they are friends rather than a friendship that's lasted for years
It's funny,
being lost.
and it's and I won't disagree with any of that. And it's funny we're talking about how they could have broken newer ground with this film, and it's almost like we talked about JJ Abrams last week as well, and his Star Wars stuff, and that he's maybe, and it's interesting as well, Rob, just on a total side note, that we're looking forward to Noah Hawley's Alien series because he is very good with Fargo at finding the things within the Coen Brothers universe and then finding great ways to celebrate them and tell new stories with them. And JJ Abrams is like, I'm beginning to characterize him in my head as, he's made some amazing films. I don't want to smash him up at all, but just that he's great at understanding a thing and bringing it to life, but in quite a one-dimensional kind of shallow way. He can't break new ground like Noah Hawley, I think, does. He's just great at jazzing it up and making it modern, because it basically, rather than going into the unknown of Trek, he's just done another reboot with the second Trek movie, which seems crazy. And with Star Wars, it was like he got it up and running, and then, there was maybe wider problems with that, but Force Awakens again is kind of like just a shadow puppet version of the original film.
Yeah.
Ultimately slightly dissatisfying. And it's funny that the next movie, in teeing that up, as we will in a little bit, is actually in the fandom. I was really surprised. I've only seen it once at the cinema. I didn't really enjoy it, and it didn't perform particularly well. But the fans love it. They're like, there is only one Kelvin timeline movie, is Star Trek Beyond, and it's because they're just in space doing space stuff.
I've thought of another reason why the death scene doesn't land, and it's a problem that Wrath of Khan doesn't have, and that is that they have to explain the MacGuffin that will bring Kirk back to life before he's dead with the Tribble thing. I didn't even really get Rob that they show you right at the start of the movie as well with it being Khan's blood. I took it as just he was smart and he synthesized a cure, but you're right, it is his blood that he uses. So twice we have been shown like Khan's blood can save people's lives. Yeah. Remember that's going to be important. And then we see Kirk die, and obviously again, I suppose having seen the original film or knowing there's going to be a next film, I know that Kirk's not going to die. So it was just kind of like but I think even if I'd just seen that one film, it has told you he's not going to die, don't worry.
I do agree with that. There didn't feel like any particular peril in it.
No.
But as an I was looking at it, it's more like a character building moment between Kirk and Spock, and it's nicely done and nicely acted, and there's a poignancy to it. At no point was I ever questioning whether Kirk was going to die. It's that classic modern thing of James Bond's not going to die.
Wait.
Wow. There was no thought that this could be the end for Kirk. So I do agree.
Anything? I have not much else to talk about.
I don't have much else to talk about. I've written down the torpedoes are staggeringly stupid. I've written down the Carol Marcus thing as being terrible. I've written poor balance for the whole crew. And it feels like that triumvirate is just two. It's just Kirk and Spock.
Yes, I agree. Definitely in this movie. I think Bones had more in Star Trek, but in Into Darkness, he's barely there. Chekhov did all right. Then Sulu had barely anything, even though he does get his moment.
Sulu
in the
got his
chair.
moment. It's hard, I guess it's hard to give all of these crew members who, in a TV series, have plenty of time to shine. They've all got to have a moment. They've got to have a moment. They've got to have a thing to do.
Uhura still pretty much follows Spock.
Yeah,
Her whole
worse,
story, I know she got her Klingon bit.
The first thing
but-
she does is like give him a little kiss on his helmet before he goes into the volcano at the beginning.
Yeah.
She's
just
bad,
in his
isn't it?
orbit. I thought that was poor as well.
It is bad.
The whole of that. And I don't know if there's like a Star Trek rule that it's worse if Bones, Spock and Kirk are less of a trio and there's more of a duo. It feels less rich to me. But then it does also, maybe there's like a whole generation of people who are like, Rob's like, I don't know what Bones does. Let's not write many lines. I don't know.
It's funny you felt like that for a few of the original movies as well.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know. I don't know where I've got it from.
There are a couple of points in this film where the three of them were together, and I had to like my brain sort of like jump started. It's like, oh, it's the three of them are together.
Yeah.
Because like Carl Urban's Bones in particular is just such a non-presence in my opinion. So like having Kirk and Spock together, like, those are the boys.
It's amazing. We're talking to the boys. Urban is incredibly charismatic in doing the worst British accent of all time in The Boys on Prime Video. I think he's great, and I really liked him in Lord of the Rings, but in this he's like just buried somehow. Like he's clean shaven. I don't know why it makes it. He just looks like a handsome guy being a doctor. He doesn't. And Scotty is, in my mind, sort of he's become the third.
He was a little bit more tolerable, Simon Pegg, in this film than he was in the previous film.
Yeah, jumping up about.
I don't know why he's got that little friend.
No, me either. And I'm obsessed with looking at his eyes. They're like little stalks. At first I thought he had like white pupils, but in this film I could see they were like like an oyster or something. He had a little stalky. It was strange.
I almost enjoyed one of the scenes between them though.
Was it when they were having a drink in the bar?
When they're having a drink at the bar, and Simon Pegg has to do all the talking, but you could almost feel the lines coming from the eyes of this little friend that he has.
That is
just Simon Pegg's little friend.
That is the one good thing, that he doesn't speak or make a sound at all. I do quite enjoy it, and that he just has to talk to him. And I know what you're thinking. So we should talk about we should wrap up with the questions I always ask you, which are interesting this week, starting with standout performance or character. I'll come to you first, Rob.
I'm going to give it to Zachary Quinto and Spock in this film. I thought did pretty good job at handling a character. He was less sassy in this film, felt a little bit more like Spock, and I think he did a good job of playing obviously a very young Vulcan who's not as emotionally mature as the Spock we have seen Leonard Nimoy portray. In particular, the death scene. I that was the point where Spock just simply couldn't contain his emotions anymore, and they were just spilling out of him. But like and the scene as well where he explains to Uhura and Kirk, actually, my choice to end my own life was not because I didn't care. The truth is exactly the opposite. I thought that bit was quite good as well. But I thought he was pretty good in the film. He's got a really good sprint on him as well. A good sprint. When he gets beamed down to San Francisco to chase after Khan, there's the sideways profile of him sprinting.
If we're going to talk about sprinting, we should talk about Simon Pegg, who I was impressed with his sprinting through those airlocks and stuff. He was going some.
He was.
How about you, Nath? Standout character or performance?
Benedict Cumberbatch. I thought he was brilliant. I thought he made the movie. I'm still not a huge fan of this Spock. I agree. I enjoyed it more than the previous one. Spock. I don't know why I'm spending all my time here talking about what I didn't like about Spock, but specifically his eyebrows. They make his face look really round. It just throws me out. He looks like he's got a big forehead.
Yeah, I
guess it's difficult because they've obviously based the entire Vulcan race around what an interesting face Leonard Nimoy has. And so essentially, you're just trying to recreate what is a very unique looking face.
Yeah, it's true. So I should probably stow that.
Cumberbatch would probably be a good spot.
Yeah,
He's got
would.
the face for it.
It would have been a great spot.
Oh, yeah.
I've just been watching Strange New
Spock.
Worlds as well, and I can't remember the guy who plays Spock in that, which is terrible, but I have become to enjoy that Spock quite a lot, and he's very low-key. So I think that anything that Zachary Quinto does, it suffers in comparison. But yeah, Benedict Cumberbatch, for all the reasons I said, I thought a villain who finally wasn't buried in makeup, had a clear charismatic purpose, and I thought in a way they're like straw men. Like the Klingons are there just so they can get really beaten up by Khan, and he's not making him seem more evil. It's making him seem more ambivalent. But I liked, look at Khan. This is what you could actually do. It's like the difference between lightsaber fights in the original Star Wars trilogy.
That's a great comparison.
And the new one. So come back. How about you, man?
Mine was, unfortunately, I don't know the character's name, but the actor is Nolan North.
Oh yeah.
I wonder whether you spotted Nolan North on
did
your
not.
phone, Rob.
He's on Admiral Robocop's ship.
He is. He gets 2 lines, very, very briefly. He is, and I guess he's dead now. He's dead. His character's dead. He dies in the
I
bridge.
I completely missed him.
Yeah, he's one of the deck officers with on Marcus's ship, and he did stand out. Not because his performance was necessarily amazing, but just because I went, oh, it's Nolan North. I forgot he was in this. Otherwise, I think I would say Cumberbatch too. Although actually, we haven't talked about her at all, but I would give a shout out to Carol Marcus, who I think is actually, I really like her performance. I'm afraid I don't know the actor's name. I really liked her performance. I thought she was great, even though she has to do that horrible scene where she's just in her underwear for no reason. So I wanted to pay her an homage. And a standout scene, Rob?
Oh, this is a difficult one. Just from a pure fun action standpoint, I got to go for Khan and Kirk being shot through the vacuum of space and avoiding the asteroids. It was just a fun set piece. And I like it, just in a bit of fan. It's cool when you get an iconic good guy and an iconic bad guy who for some reason have to just team up for a little bit.
Yeah,
it's just fun. It's like when Goku and Frieza have to team up
I knew you were thinking of Dragon Ball Z.
I didn't get that reference. I also enjoyed the Scotty side of that as well, even though it is that guy is stood there for like 20 seconds going, what's going on?
Listening
what's
to the instructions.
Countdown? I mean, it's a bit like Star Trek 3, where they're like, the ship's just, all I could hear is this countdown from 10, 9.
What's that?
What's that? What's the communicator?
Please just turn a blind eye, man. Otherwise, you're going to be sucked out of the airline. Hey, you're gone.
Nath, can you any different scene for you?
I quite like the build up with Noel, the sadly cancelled Noel Clarke, right at the beginning, and the cold open of that before the colder open, I guess, of the Indiana Jones style opening.
That's exactly it, isn't it? I was like, why do I like this? And you've nailed it, Indiana Jones.
Indiana Jones. Perfect fit for the Star Trek universe. But I think also not a particularly good fit for the Star Trek universe, but one I enjoyed anyway was I can't get past the fight. It's got a massive gun, one massive gun, one small gun. He's shooting ships. He's standing up and he's shooting birds of prey down. Yeah, that's cool.
But then if his blood regenerates life apparently, so you'd probably feel pretty all right. Just
they should have looked into that.
Yeah,
they could have. Yeah, I think that in that way that we see sometimes with games where a prominent YouTuber, there's messaging around everybody decides they hate thing, and then there's like 3 things that every commenter ends up saying on every video about it, and you're like you're puppeting some YouTuber somewhere, and here everyone's like, oh, they've cured death. Oh, do you know that movie when they cured death? And it's obviously just the fan shorthand for that whole blood thing is absolutely stupid.
It is silly. Yeah, I mean, can Khan never die? I don't know. Don't want to get into it.
Just inject himself with his own blood.
Speaking of fans, then, Nath, we should talk about the critical reception to the movie.
We should.
How did it go down?
Medium. It did well. It was the most successful, obviously nonsense because of inflation, but it made the most actual dollars at the box office ever for a Star Trek movie at that point, which was 467 of them.
Thank you very much.
Million. On a budget of about 185 million. So profitability, fine, not amazing, but fine. 14th place, as I said, in 2013, mixed to positive reviews. Peter Travers in Rolling Stone called it a tour de force to be reckoned with, which I think is probably the blandest thing you can say about any film. It's a
I'm
tour
not sure
de
he's seen
force
it.
to be reckoned with.
It just feels like a safe thing to say, doesn't it? Oh, it's a tour de force.
And to be reckoned with.
Yes.
Other people, A.O. Scott in the New York Times called it uninspired hack work, which I think is too harsh, but I can see where he's coming from. And I thought it might be interesting for you to. Nick Mayer has not held his opinions in check. He said, if you're going to do an homage, and then actually I've seen another version of the quote where he says, if you're not going to rip something off, you have to add something. You have to add another layer to it. And they didn't. Just by putting the same words in different characters' mouth doesn't add up to anything. So,
yeah,
he's right. And this is you know, a lot of the time in modern cinema, particularly the Marvel movies, there is an assumption that just putting some things on screen together or doing something that someone will recognise equals good
meaning.
Thing.
Yeah.
Equals meaning. And I don't think it does.
I agree.
Not always.
It doesn't. Sometimes it can taste sweet, but it's ultimately hollow.
Exactly.
That's how I feel about it too.
Exactly.
Rob, have you got any recommendations based on this movie?
I was telling Nate just before we started recording that I'm going to struggle with this bit.
That's fine. You could probably just say, no, I actually don't.
The Wrath of Khan, obviously. You can watch The Wrath of Khan. It did also remind me quite a lot of the time, and obviously this is just probably because it's JJ Abrams directing it, but and I've mentioned Mission Impossible before as well, but a lot of it is Mission Impossible. Mission Impossible is a great franchise that is built around fun, cool set pieces. Let's think of a bunch of impossible scenarios. They've got to do a really hard thing. The odds are against them, and they all last between 2 and 3 minutes long. A bit breathless. So you've got the scene where Khan and Kirk are going through space. Yeah. Scotty's on the other side. They don't know if he can hear them. He's got to open the door at the last second. They've got like a tiny little window they've got to get through. It's an absolute suicide mission. There's just lots of that kind of thing. There's lots of that kind of set piece.
Yeah.
Being made by the same people.
Even the intro. The intro, yes, it's very Indiana Jonesy, just in terms of they're running away with a religious artifact. There's like an indigenous civilization after them. There's a volcano going off. It's all, but even that's quite a Mission Impossible setup. So the mission is you've got to go into a volcano, detonate this thing. You've got to lead everyone away from the volcano whilst we do it, and hopefully we can beam you all back up and not reveal ourselves.
Out clean.
It's gone a bit wrong.
Yeah, it's all
Plan
gone a bit
B.
wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, I think both very good recommendations. So we come to Warp Score, Rob. I forgot to mention at the start of the top of the show that we're currently bombing along at Warp 7.
We are.
How is your Star Trek fandom doing right now?
Look, I don't know. Like, it's, you can't change the football team you support. When you're a fan of something, you're just a fan of it, I think.
That's it.
What the heck?
Well, don't ruin the end of the podcast, because I'm going to ask you if you...
No, if we don't ask him, he can't say no.
Right, that's true.
But yeah, we're at Warp 8.
Yeah.
Yay.
I just love this. I've really enjoyed doing this. That's great. Well, Warp 8 after 2 JJ Abrams films, one left.
It's ironic, isn't it, that they're not 2 of my favourite Star Trek films.
No.
But after watching them both, they have made me realise things I think about Star Trek that I wouldn't have realised had I not been shown a version of it that I had problems with.
Yeah, interesting.
And they are, again, Into Darkness, I think, is a really great action film.
Oh, yeah, undoubtedly.
So it's good. It's like, I really like that old stuff, and I've enjoyed watching this action film.
You contrast Into Darkness with Insurrection. It's unrecognisable that they're part of the same.
Yeah, that is crazy, isn't it? What a strange journey we've been on.
They're only 3 films apart.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, that's so weird. So there's one movie left, and Nathan, I'm going to throw to you to tell us about Star Trek Beyond.
Star Trek Beyond. Yeah, and there isn't tons out there. These things, people need to get old and write their memoirs.
Yes.
But the journey is a slightly strange one, only for a reason that I mentioned in the previous podcast, which is that in the same year as Star Trek Into Darkness was released, JJ Abrams was announced as being on board to produce and direct the first rebooted, but anyway, Star Trek No.
Nope.
Star Wars. We've all done it. Star Wars movie. So that's coming out. That's the thing that he jumps onto immediately afterwards. So that movie comes out in 2015, and Star Trek Into Darkness comes out in 2013. So you can imagine it's a 2-year gap. He is still on board as a producer, and his creative team, the Bad Robot kind of team, and Roberto Orci, Alex Kurtzman, Damon Lindelof, not necessarily involved, but that group, that collaborative group, is still supposed to be in charge. And what happens is Roberto Orci, who had written on the first 2 films, he's set to direct this next one, and there is a plan that it's going to be released to coincide with the 50th anniversary celebrations in 2016. So they give themselves 3 years to get this thing made and into cinemas. Orci is an unpopular choice among some fans for a couple of reasons, one of which was that he was quite active on the fan boards at the time, and in response to a fan questioning on the I can't remember which Star Trek board it was, but he wrote under his own name a response to this fan saying, "I think the article above is akin to a child acting out against his parents. It makes it tough for some to listen, but since I am a loving parent, I read these comments without anger or resentment, no matter how misguided. Having said that, 2 bigger Star Treks in a row with the best reviews is hardly a description of broken, and frankly, your tone and attitude make it hard for me to listen to what might otherwise be decent notions to pursue in the future. As I love to say, there is a reason why I get to write the movies and you don't."
Oh, God.
Yes.
Which is, yeah, in a way, it's what all of us have always wanted to say in the comments. In another way, it's a terrible idea. I think the idea that they were putting forward was seen as too soft and maybe too kind of classic Trek. So in 2014, January, Orci is bumped off the movie, and the 2 assistant writers who had been also writing on the previous 2 movies are out as well, and they are Patrick McKay and J.D. Payne. As a director, Orci is then replaced by Justin Lin, who is famous for basically making the Fast and Furious franchise into the big franchise that it is. He directed from Tokyo Drift, then he did 4, 5, 6, and I think 9, and maybe 10 as well. So he's kind of the big... And again, it's interesting that you kind of look at Mission Impossible. I think also Fast and Furious is also about... It's this family, it's his friends, and they go on these missions, and they do these crazy things. And as a screenwriter... Simon Pegg comes in with a guy called Doug Jung. They've not met before, but and I've been trying to find out what impetus brought them together and why. But they didn't have very long to make it. They had this deadline of the summer of 2016 to hit, and they want to make something. They talk about inclusivity, and what they mean by that is audience inclusivity. They want to write a Star Trek story which can break out and be liked by everybody. And Simon Pegg says that's why you might write a heist movie or a Western movie and then place these characters that everybody loves in it. So that was kind of their plan. Everything just kind of cracks on. They set about creating a story that both harks back to that being on a 5-year mission, where we find them in the middle of that 5-year mission, but also giving it a genre accessibility. There was a race to get the script ready, but they did it. The movie starts shooting in June 2015, and it makes a release date of July 2016. That's when the next movie comes out. So relatively smooth sailing, although just kind of strange movements in the Star Trek creative universe. And the weird thing as well, Orci and Kurtzman had been writing together for years and years. They'd done Transformers. They'd just been in the geek-verse. They'd done Cowboys and Aliens, Harrison Ford movie. They broke up. This seems to be a terrible time for Orci. And I have no idea what was going on in his life or anything. They went their separate ways, and I don't think there was anything untoward about that. I think Orci, partly it was because he wanted to reinvest his time in Star Trek. That all went wrong. He's not really made anything since. Kurtzman, meanwhile, has become the kind of de facto creative director of modern Star Trek. So he is in charge of Discovery and Strange New Worlds and Picard. So I think he's the executive saying yes and no to putting that universe together. So just interesting that they broke up, partly so that Kurtzman could get away from Star Trek, but he actually comes back and is doing what I think the fandom generally considered to be a fine job.
Yeah.
There we go.
And it is going to be the last movie in the Star Trek the last Star Trek movie for us to watch.
It is going to be the last one for us to watch. I've got to really quickly run through the years in between. I'm going to do it really quickly because I know we're running out of time. So 2014, to bridge these years, Transformers Age of Extinction is number 1. The Hobbit, Battle of the Five Armies, is number 2. Guardians of the Galaxy, which was seen as a template by Paramount, they really wanted to make the next Star Trek like Guardians of the Galaxy. That's at number 3. Maleficent is 4, and The Hunger Games Part 1, Mockingjay Part 1, is number 5. 2015, the year before this final Star Trek film that we've ever had comes out, Star Wars Force Awakens, thanks very much JJ Abrams.
Nice.
Jurassic World, Rob's favourite film. Furious 7. Avengers Age of Ultron is number 4, and Minions is number 5.
Oh, how franchisey can you get?
More, because in 2016, the year that this film does emerge, Captain America Civil War, Rogue One, A Star Wars Story, Finding Dory, Zootopia, and The Jungle Book. Disney coming in with some big hitters.
Yeah. It's fascinating hearing those, top chart toppers compared to just what we've heard previously with the 80s. The movies have really, really changed, haven't they? So one left to go, Star Trek Beyond. It's the most recent movie that we'll be watching, and also the one I think I can remember the least about, which is exciting for me. Rob, we've got one thing I have to ask you before we go. I've not asked you this before, although you've already ruined the answer. Are you still a Star Trek fan?
Yes, somehow I am.
Love it. You've been listening to Red Shirt Cinema Club. If you've enjoyed listening, rating and reviewing the podcast would really help us out. We'll be back next Monday with another episode, and in the meantime, we'd love to hear from you. Send us an email to redshirtcinemaclub@gmail.com, where a team of highly trained tribbles await your correspondence. See you next week.